Cleopatra VII wasn't just Egypt's queen. She was its last true ruler, fighting to keep her kingdom from Rome's grip. She played politics like a master, forging alliances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, not just for romance but to protect Egypt's independence. She wasn't a figurehead. She reformed the economy, stabilized currency, and ruled as a hands-on leader who spoke directly to her people in their own languages. Rome saw her as a threat, not a lover. Octavian used propaganda to paint her as a scheming seductress corrupting Mark Antony, when in reality, she was battling to keep Egypt free. When Rome's forces closed in, she made her final defiant move, choosing death over humiliation. Whether it was poison or a venomous snake, no one knows for sure. But Cleopatra's legacy outlived Rome's attempts to erase her, making her one of the most legendary rulers in history. Power in ancient Egypt was a family business, and Cleopatra's first marriage was no love story. It was a calculated move to secure the throne. At just 18, she was forced to marry her 10-year-old brother, Ptolemy XIII, as tradition dictated that ruling queens must have a male co-ruler. But Cleopatra had no intention of sharing power. She was older, smarter, and determined to rule on her own terms. Tensions exploded into full-blown civil war when Ptolemy's advisors turned against her, forcing her into exile. Most rulers would have accepted defeat. Cleopatra didn't. She knew she needed a powerful ally, so she staged one of the boldest political entrances in history, having herself smuggled into Julius Caesar's palace wrapped inside a rug. When the fabric unfurled, there she was, dressed to impress, confident and ready to negotiate. The move was so unexpected, Caesar was instantly intrigued. And just like that, Cleopatra had secured the most powerful man in the world as her supporter. But while strategy helped her win alliances, her daily life was equally a carefully crafted display of power. Cleopatra understood the power of appearance. Every morning before meeting diplomats or addressing her people, she underwent a ritual fit for a goddess. This wasn't just about looking good, it was about projecting divinity. Her attendants bathed her in perfumed water, then covered her in oils made from rare flowers, ensuring her skin was soft and fragrant. Her robes were made of the finest imported silks, often woven with golden threads, making her shimmer in the sunlight. Jewelry wasn't just decoration, it was armor. She wore heavy gold collars, jeweled headdresses, and rings engraved with protective symbols. Her kohl-lined eyes weren't just a beauty statement, the makeup contained antibacterial properties that kept her vision sharp in the harsh desert climate. When Cleopatra entered a room, she didn't just look like a queen, she looked like a divine being. She wanted her enemies to see her as untouchable, almost supernatural. But no ruler survives on image alone. Cleopatra needed more than gold to maintain her power. She needed information, and she made sure she always had it first. Knowledge was Cleopatra's deadliest weapon, and she didn't rely on men to gather it. She built a spy network unlike anything Egypt had seen, one that operated in whispers, hidden in plain sight. Many of her spies were women, often disguised as handmaidens, traders, or entertainers. They moved through the palaces of rival rulers, overhearing secret plans, delivering messages, and even smuggling poisons when necessary. Cleopatra trusted no one completely, not even her closest advisors. Her attendants weren't just there to dress her. They listened, reported, and kept her ahead of every possible betrayal. Some rumors claim that even her lovers were watched by her spies, ensuring no one ever controlled her. She played a dangerous game, one where a single misstep could cost her the throne. But Cleopatra was always one move ahead, a queen who ruled not just with beauty or wealth, but with intelligence. And it was that intelligence that made her more than just a ruler, it made her something closer to divine. Cleopatra wasn't just a queen, she was a living deity in the eyes of her people. Unlike many rulers who claimed divine status for political gain, Cleopatra fully embraced the role. She identified with the goddess Isis, the mother figure of Egyptian mythology, who was believed to protect the land and its people. Her public appearances were carefully staged to reinforce this image. She dressed in the flowing robes of Isis, wore sacred jewelry, and even took part in religious ceremonies that traditionally only the high priests could perform. Her subjects didn't just see her as a ruler, they worshipped her as a direct link between the gods and the mortal world. But Cleopatra's divine status wasn't just for show, she actively used it to maintain power and influence. While Rome ruled through military might, Egypt still operated on faith and tradition. Cleopatra played to this strength, making sure her people believed that following her wasn't just a political decision, it was a spiritual duty. Her image appeared on temples, her name was spoken in prayers, and offerings were made in her honor. Even when Rome sought to destroy her, they couldn't erase the idea she had cultivated. To this day, her legend lives on, proving that sometimes a ruler can become more than human. Wealth meant nothing to Cleopatra if it couldn't be used to make a statement, and she made one of the boldest displays of extravagance in history with a single pearl. The story goes that during a lavish feast with Mark Antony, Cleopatra boasted that she could throw the most expensive dinner ever. Antony laughed, thinking it was impossible. Without hesitation, Cleopatra removed one of her massive pearl earrings, dropped it into a goblet of vinegar, and watched as it dissolved. Then, she raised the cup to her lips and drank it down. Her act wasn't just about luxury, it was about power. Pearls were symbols of immense wealth, valued more than gold. By casually destroying one, Cleopatra showed Antony that her riches were beyond comprehension. But was it even possible? Scientists today debate whether a pearl could dissolve quickly in vinegar. Some say it would take days, while others believe ancient Egyptians knew ways to speed up the reaction. Whether true or exaggerated, the message was clear. Cleopatra didn't just possess wealth, she controlled it. And this was just a glimpse into the kind of feasts that made her the most talked-about ruler of her time. Cleopatra's banquets weren't just about eating, they were performances meant to showcase her wealth, power, and access to things no one else had. Her feasts were filled with foods so rare and expensive that even Rome's elite were stunned. Exotic fruits imported from distant lands, meats marinated in rare spices, honey-glazed birds, and even roasted peacocks were served on gold and silver platters. Some accounts claim that flamingo tongues were a delicacy at her table, while other sources suggest that rare fish and shellfish were brought in daily from the Mediterranean. But Cleopatra's meals weren't just about indulgence. Many of the ingredients she consumed were believed to have mystical properties. She was fascinated by ancient Egyptian medicine and often dined on foods that were thought to enhance beauty, increase intelligence, or even extend life. She drank wines mixed with herbs, ate figs that were rumored to have healing powers, and consumed specially prepared breads infused with lotus flowers, a plant linked to divine energy. Her feasts weren't just about satisfying hunger, they were another way she reinforced her status as someone beyond mere mortals. Cleopatra wasn't just a queen, she was a scholar. Unlike most rulers of her time, she was highly educated and had access to the most exclusive knowledge of the ancient world. After part of the Great Library of Alexandria was destroyed, Cleopatra made it her mission to rebuild a second collection of rare scrolls and texts. Some of these were so valuable and secretive that only a handful of people were allowed to read them. These scrolls contained advanced knowledge of medicine, astrology, mathematics, and alchemy, subjects that were considered nearly magical at the time. It's even believed that Cleopatra collected writings on poisons and their antidotes, allowing her to understand how to both heal and harm. Some historians think she had access to lost texts from other civilizations, including Greece, Persia, and even India, giving her a level of knowledge far beyond other rulers of her era. Whether she studied these scrolls for personal curiosity or to gain an advantage over her enemies, one thing is clear. Cleopatra wasn't just ruling with power, she ruled with intellect. She understood that knowledge was the greatest weapon of all, and she made sure she had more of it than anyone else. Cleopatra didn't just wear perfume, she turned it into a symbol of power, seduction, and status. Scent was everything in ancient Egypt, and the rarest perfumes were so valuable they were considered a form of currency. Cleopatra was known for wearing fragrances made from myrrh, frankincense, cinnamon, and blue lotus, blended with oils so rich they lasted for days. The perfume she used wasn't just a luxury, it was an extension of her identity. Some say she had a unique scent so intoxicating that people recognized her presence before she even entered a room. She also used perfume as a weapon of influence. When she sailed to meet Mark Antony, her ship's sails were soaked in perfume, filling the air with an exotic fragrance that reached Antony's fleet before she was even in sight. The effect was immediate, he was already under her spell before laying eyes on her. Her personal chambers were infused with rare fragrances, creating an atmosphere that felt otherworldly. To the Egyptians, scent wasn't just about pleasure, it was spiritual. Perfume was used in temples and sacred rituals, further reinforcing Cleopatra's image as a living goddess. The formulas she favored were considered so valuable that thousands of years later, Archaeologists are still trying to recreate them. But Cleopatra's mastery of luxury didn't stop with fragrance. She also had access to riches far beyond gold. Cleopatra wasn't just a queen, she was a warrior. Unlike other rulers who stayed behind while their armies fought, Cleopatra personally led her navy into battle. Her most famous fight was the Battle of Actium, the legendary clash between her forces and those of Rome's Octavian. She and Mark Antony commanded a fleet of more than 500 warships, each one built for speed and power. Cleopatra's flagship was rumored to be lavishly decorated yet designed for battle, carrying soldiers and supplies as they faced off against Rome's forces. The battle was brutal. Cleopatra and Antony were up against Octavian's fleet, led by the brilliant strategist Agrippa. For a moment, victory seemed possible. Cleopatra had brought warships that were larger, stronger, and more heavily armed than Rome's. But the battle took a devastating turn. Octavian's forces outmaneuvered them, cutting off supply lines and forcing Cleopatra's fleet into a desperate retreat. Realizing defeat was near, she made a daring escape, breaking through enemy lines and fleeing to Egypt. Antony followed, but their defeat at Actium marked the beginning of the end. Rome was closing in, and Cleopatra was running out of time. Cleopatra's wealth wasn't just inherited, it was actively controlled. And she had direct access to one of the greatest sources of power in the ancient world: gold. Unlike many rulers who relied on taxing their people or trading with foreign lands, Cleopatra had her own personal gold mines deep in the eastern desert of Egypt. These mines had been worked for centuries, but under Cleopatra's reign, they were carefully managed to ensure a constant flow of wealth. The gold extracted from these mines was used for everything from minting her own coins to funding her massive navy and maintaining Egypt's independence from Rome. Gold was more than just currency to Cleopatra, it was a symbol of divine authority. She wore it, gifted it, and used it to secure loyalty. Egyptian priests crafted statues of gods from her gold, further linking her rule to the divine. When Rome was bleeding resources from endless wars, Cleopatra still had a steady supply of riches, giving her an economic advantage over even the most powerful Roman generals. Her ability to control Egypt's gold made her a serious threat to Rome, and that's exactly why they feared her influence. Cleopatra wasn't just another queen in Rome's eyes, she was a dangerous force capable of controlling some of the most powerful men in the empire. She didn't need armies to shake the foundations of Roman politics. She used intelligence, diplomacy, and seduction to turn Rome's strongest leaders into her allies. Julius Caesar, one of Rome's greatest conquerors, fought battles in Egypt just to keep her on the throne. After his assassination, Mark Antony, another Roman powerhouse, gave up everything for her, including his political standing in Rome. This wasn't just romance, it was strategy. The Roman Senate saw Cleopatra as a threat to their entire system of power. They feared she wanted to turn Rome into her own kingdom, ruling by Antony's side. Octavian, Caesar's heir and future emperor, launched one of the most vicious propaganda campaigns in history, painting Cleopatra as a manipulative temptress corrupting Rome's men. He called her a foreign seductress, a woman unfit to wield power. But what truly scared Rome was that Cleopatra didn't need them. She had her own wealth, her own military, and a mind sharp enough to challenge the greatest empire on earth. And when politics wasn't enough, she had another tool at her disposal: poison. Cleopatra's court wasn't just filled with advisors and servants, it included some of the most skilled poison experts in the ancient world. The Egyptian elite had studied poisons for centuries, and Cleopatra took full advantage of this knowledge. She kept a team of specialists who tested different toxins, finding the most effective and painless ways to kill. Some historians believe she even experimented on prisoners, observing the effects of different poisons firsthand. Cleopatra's mastery of toxins wasn't just about assassination, it was about power. She needed to protect herself from betrayal, and poison was often the weapon of choice in royal courts. Some say her rings contained hidden compartments filled with deadly substances, allowing her to kill anyone who threatened her in an instant. Others believe she carefully microdosed poisons over time, making herself immune to the substances her enemies might use against her. Whether myth or reality, one thing is certain: Cleopatra understood that power wasn't just about strategy and wealth. It was also about survival. And she didn't just prepare for attacks on Earth, she looked to the stars for guidance. Cleopatra wasn't just a queen. She was a woman who studied the movements of the heavens and used them to shape her rule. She surrounded herself with astrologers who predicted key events, advised her on political decisions, and helped craft her public image. She claimed a cosmic connection to the goddess Isis, reinforcing her divine status by aligning her rule with celestial events. In a world where rulers were seen as godlike figures, she made sure people believed that the stars themselves had chosen her to lead. She wasn't just using astrology for show, she timed major political moves based on celestial alignments, ensuring that her actions carried mystical weight. Some say she consulted horoscopes before forming alliances, making military decisions, or even choosing when to meet powerful men like Caesar and Antony. In a time when Romans were skeptical of astrology, Cleopatra made it a political weapon, something she could use to control not just her people, but also the minds of foreign rulers. Whether she truly believed in the stars, or simply understood their power over people, one thing is clear: she knew how to make the universe itself work in her favor. Cleopatra's personal attendants weren't just servants, they were bodyguards in disguise. In the dangerous world of royal politics, betrayal could come from anywhere, and Cleopatra wasn't going to leave her life in the hands of ordinary palace guards. She surrounded herself with elite handmaidens who were trained in combat, skilled in knife fighting, pressure point attacks, and even self-defense techniques. Unlike the traditional warriors of Egypt, these women blended into her court, appearing as harmless attendants while carrying concealed weapons. These handmaidens served a dual purpose. They protected Cleopatra from assassination attempts and acted as spies, gathering intelligence within her palace walls. Some historians believe they were trained to move undetected, slipping through corridors and eavesdropping on enemies. Their presence made it nearly impossible to catch Cleopatra off guard. This wasn't just paranoia. She lived in an era where rulers were poisoned, backstabbed, or overthrown at any moment. Having a hidden force of highly trained women at her side wasn't just smart, it was necessary. But even with an army of protectors, Cleopatra couldn't control everything. One of history's greatest mysteries still remains: where did she take her final rest? For centuries, explorers, archaeologists, and treasure hunters have searched for Cleopatra's final resting place, but no one has ever found it. Unlike other Egyptian rulers who were entombed in grand pyramids or temple complexes, Cleopatra's burial site remains one of history's greatest mysteries. Some accounts suggest she was buried alongside Mark Antony in a magnificent tomb filled with gold, jewels, and treasures beyond imagination. Others believe her tomb was hidden to protect her legacy from Roman destruction. One of the strongest theories points to Taposiris Magna, a temple near Alexandria, where recent excavations have uncovered tunnels and artifacts from Cleopatra's time. Some believe her tomb was constructed near the lost palace of Alexandria, which sank beneath the Mediterranean Sea after a series of earthquakes. If her tomb is ever found, it could be one of the most important discoveries in history, revealing treasures, inscriptions, and possibly even Cleopatra's own mummified remains. But even if her physical tomb is lost, her influence has never disappeared. Unlike most rulers, Cleopatra didn't just control armies, she controlled the very words that shaped the world. Few rulers in history could match Cleopatra's intelligence. She wasn't just well-educated, she was a linguistic genius. She spoke at least 9 languages, making her one of the most multilingual rulers of the ancient world. Unlike other pharaohs who relied on translators, Cleopatra could speak directly to foreign diplomats, traders, and generals. She was fluent in Greek, Egyptian, Latin, Hebrew, Arabic, and several other regional languages, giving her a strategic advantage in negotiations. This ability set her apart. She wasn't just a queen sitting on a throne, she was actively involved in shaping international affairs. She could charm a Roman senator one moment and give orders to an Egyptian priest the next, all without needing an interpreter. Her mastery of languages also strengthened her image as a ruler chosen by the gods, able to communicate with all people no matter their background. To the Egyptians, she was more than a queen. She was a goddess who understood their prayers in their own tongue. But Cleopatra didn't just rule through diplomacy, she also knew how to control luxury, trade, and the most sought-after indulgence of the time: perfume. Cleopatra's fascination with fragrance wasn't just personal, it was an industry. She didn't rely on imported scents. She built her own perfume factory, where rare oils and floral extracts were blended into some of the most sought-after perfumes in history. She understood that perfume was more than just a luxury. It was power. The right scent could evoke attraction, fear, or even religious devotion. Her factories produced custom blends used not only in beauty but also in sacred temple rituals. Archaeologists have uncovered remnants of what is believed to be Cleopatra's personal perfume laboratory near Alexandria, filled with clay vessels that once held rare ancient scents. Her signature perfumes were so famous that they were traded across the Mediterranean, fetching higher prices than gold. Some say she even experimented with aphrodisiac ingredients, crafting scents designed to heighten attraction and influence those around her. Cleopatra understood that ruling wasn't just about military strength, it was about controlling perception. Cleopatra wasn't just a ruler, she was deeply involved in the spiritual and mystical practices of ancient Egypt. Some historians believe she may have experimented with psychedelic substances, using them in religious rituals, for heightened awareness, or even as a political tool. One of the most famous plants associated with Egyptian royalty was the blue lotus, a flower known for its mild psychoactive effects. When steeped in wine, it created a dreamlike state, enhancing relaxation, focus, and possibly even visions. This sacred plant was often depicted in Egyptian art, placed in temples, and linked to divine connection. Whether she used them for personal insight, diplomatic advantage, or simply as part of elaborate rituals, one thing is certain: she understood the power of perception, both her own and the one she created for others. Cleopatra was too powerful, too legendary, and too much of a threat for Rome to let her memory survive unchallenged. After her death, Octavian launched a systematic effort to erase her name and legacy. Statues of her were destroyed, her image was chiseled away from temple walls, and her coins were melted down. Roman historians painted her as a manipulative temptress, rather than a brilliant strategist. Octavian wanted the world to remember her not as Egypt's last great ruler, but as a cautionary tale, a woman who dared to challenge Rome and lost. Yet, despite their best efforts, Cleopatra's name refused to disappear. Her legend only grew over time, becoming more than just history, it became myth. Even today, she is one of the most famous women who ever lived, a symbol of intelligence, ambition, and power. The Romans tried to erase her, but instead they made her immortal. That's about it. Write in the comments which Cleopatra fact surprised you the most. For more useful information, watch other videos.